In just a few weeks, the 4th World Baseball Classic will begin. It's the latest edition of a tournament that offers a distinctive sort of baseball competition, with many of the world's best players in action alongside their countrymen. The competition began 10 years ago, and that first year produced a memorable final between Japan and Cuba. Both passionate baseball hotbeds, both eager to make an emphatic statement in that first WBC. It was an auspicious beginning for an ambitious idea, a reminder of just how exciting the idea of playing for your country could be.
My welcome to the WBC moment was in talking to Andy Chavez in the first WBC. And he, of course, played for the Mets in the postseason, made that incredible catch that we still talk about.
He made the catch! Andy Chavez saved the day!
And I'll never forget him playing for Team Venezuela telling me that those games for Venezuela in the WBC were the most important games he ever played in his life.
The World Baseball Classic, an unprecedented 16-country tournament, the very best players from all around the world representing their countries and their territories. It promises to be very exciting.
The 2006 WBC was a pivotal moment in the grand history of baseball.
That first tournament showed, okay, this is a viable event. That legitimacy was necessary. It showed people that this was not a one-time goofy event. It was a very serious event with great stakes.
July of 2005, the IOC meets and votes baseball out of the Olympics on a Friday. A few days later, in a ballroom in a hotel in Dearborn, Michigan at the All-Star Game, MLB and the MLBPA announced the start of the WBC.
For the first time ever, baseball's best players will compete for their home countries in a global tournament.
When the IOC got rid of baseball in 2005, it seemed like there needed to be a place for international baseball to be played, where people could be playing for a team with their country on their uniform shirt. The WBC was the perfect venue for that.
Baseball really needed a global stage, and it's a great opportunity to expand a talent base too, because there are a lot of countries on the planet that don't play, and getting the WBC in there was a great stage for it.
It was talked about, or a similar type of event had been talked about for a long time. Talking about a baseball World Cup and putting a plan together back as early as 1993, 94.
It seemed to me like the perfect opportunity to pick up where the Olympics left off.
The original plan for the first WBC called for teams from the United States, Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, Venezuela, Japan, and Korea to be among those vying for a true world championship. But there was another country missing, a powerhouse whose absence threatened the authenticity of the tournament before a single pitch was thrown.
Without Cuba, the tournament would have been empty. Would not have been legitimate, quite honestly.
This team is basically the New York Yankees of international baseball. You cannot have them not participate in this tournament. They have to be there.
They dominated. You know, in the Olympics, they dominated in the Pan Am Games. It was very important for them to participate in the first World Baseball Classic.
It was critical for, I think, public interest. I believe even Sadahara made a comment at one point that without Cuba, the credibility of the tournament would be weakened.
The central issue keeping Cuba from the tournament was the long-standing trade embargo between the United States and Cuba, which prevented the Cubans from receiving any prize money.
Desde el primer momento existieron sus problemas políticos dentro de la participación cubana en el primer clásico.
This goes far beyond baseball. You've got Washington and Havana talking through intermediaries, trying to figure out how can they find a way, a solution for the Cuban team to play.
Pero sí, desde el principio de la primera edición del Clásico, Cuba estuvo dispuesta a participar y Cuba siempre ha estado dispuesta a apoyar este evento.
We had notified Cuba that the application for them to play had been denied. They said they would get back to us with a response.
And there's a facsimile sent from Havana to New York, the commissioner's office. And Paul Archie, who at the time is heading up MLB's international efforts, receives this fax proposing from the Cuban government to say,
we would still like to come and play, and we would request that any prize money that we would receive would all be donated to the victims of Hurricane Katrina. We resubmitted the application, made some changes, it was approved, and everyone was relieved.
While for Cuba, simply getting into the tournament was a huge roadblock. For the United States, the process of getting the biggest names in the game to participate had its difficulties as well.
Biggest challenge I've ever faced, because there were so many unknowns. The players didn't know much about it. We didn't know much about it. We were given strict guidelines. You can't practice so long. Major league teams are reluctant to turn their players loose.
But if there was a turning point, it was when a Yankee legend told his team he was committed to representing his country.
The ball club can let you know how they feel, but I mean, when you get to Derek Jeter in 2006, you trust him.
Jeter at that time was certainly, in some respects, the face of baseball. And for him to participate, that was a big deal.
Jeter's presence on the roster not only legitimized the team, but led to other stars signing on as well.
We had a dream team. We had amazing players, from, you know, future Hall of Famers to star of our stars.
Chipper Jones told me I've been waiting my whole life to play for my country. And Derek Jeter told me, you know, Buck, I'll do whatever you want. You want me to recruit other guys, whatever you need, I'm on. A-Rod asked me what the uniforms look like. That was his first concern. He said, I want to play for Team USA. And once they all got together, everybody started to look around and say, wow, it was a pretty special group.
That was a roster that Major League Baseball did not have to apologize for. That was loaded with stars. It was a good team, but this was a much more even playing field than I think even the Americans themselves, the major leaguers, thought they were going to find.
Welcome to the Tokyo Dome. We proudly present today Game 1 of the World Baseball Classic.
You think Korea's not excited about this W right here? Play by left field, Godiel, goodbye, home run!
Flags, fans, music. This is not your ordinary March 7th spring training game.
The inaugural 2006 World Baseball Classic was underway. 16 teams playing on 2 continents, and there was little arguing. The Americans were among the favorites.
We see now this dream team that we have assembled here on Team USA, and it's Jeter, it's A-Rod, Ken Griffey Jr., and many American fans at this point in time think, of course, the U.S. will win in its national pastime in the first WBC.
But in the Americans' second game of the tournament, they found themselves in huge trouble against unheralded Canada and center fielder Adam Stern, who had all of 54 Major League games to his name.
Punch toward left, slicing along the line, and it's going to carry him. Stern racing into third. Are they going to bring him in? They are. They're trying to wave him home for an inside the Parker, and he's going to get it. And Canada leads it 8-0.
I hate that guy. I don't know who he is, but I hate him.
A triple, a single, and a home run. He has driven in 4 runs in this one.
All of a sudden, Team Canada in the second game for the U.S. takes an 8-0 lead. Stunned.
Canada has upset the United States. Shock the world, baby!
What resonated after that loss to Canada, going into the clubhouse, I realized, hey, we got to show up. We got to play here.
Obviously, we got a wake-up call. You know what, I think one thing that we have learned very quickly in this international play is anything can happen.
Despite the shocking loss, the Americans did advance out of their first-round pool, which set up a highly anticipated matchup with Japan in the double elimination second round.
Well, it seemed inevitable when the pools were announced for this inaugural World Baseball Classic. The U.S. would face Japan at some point in the tournament.
Yeah, no, there's a whole right hitter. Good to see you.
On that WBC Japan team, there were only 2 U.S. major leaguers at the time, Ichiro and Otsuka. All of the rest of the players on Team Japan were stars from the Japanese Professional League, and they're being opposed by Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez and Ken Griffey Jr., and they're in awe. They stood further away from the batting cage than they normally would, almost as if they were fans instead of peers. And Ichiro sensed this, so he gathered all of his teammates in the outfield before the game, and he said, look, this is no time to admire your competition. You are professionals and you can be better, so you don't need to look up to them, you need to look down on them and beat them.
swings and stings along on the right field. Wells backing up, turning, and that's gone.
He then goes into the game, and on the third pitch of the game, he takes Jake Peavy deep over the right field wall.
Ichiro jumping all over the Jake Peavy pitch and taking him out of the ballpark to make it 1-0 Japan.
So everybody bought into the message because Ichiro just showed them exactly the way they had to do it.
If Ichiro set an early tone, the next 9 innings would be closely fought. A taste of October baseball in March.
It would remind you of a 7th game of a World Series because it was so intense. It was back and forth. We were down. We tied it up.
Derek Lee ties it with that one swing.
The game would remain tied into the 8th when Japan appeared to take the lead.
The call, or rather the reversal of the call.
Wind coming in on it. Nishioka tagging up. Here's the throw home, and it will not get there. And Japan retakes the lead 4-3. Now they're going to appeal at third to see if he left early, and he did not.
We were watching from the dugout, and there was an unusual movement at third base. Nishioka kind of rocked back to gather momentum before he broke to home.
They have overturned the call at third base and erased the run.
A pivotal call in this game. Did he leave early? Did he not? 11 years later, we still don't really know if he left early. But certainly it was a controversial play. The Japanese team was very frustrated with the result.
And their frustration would only deepen when Alex Rodriguez came to the plate in the bottom of the 9th with a runner on third.
Up the middle. That's going to sweep through. A base hit and the ball game is over. And the United States has defeated Japan by a final score of 4-3.
But the win would prove to be the high point of the tournament for the American Dream Team, as the U.S. promptly dropped its next 2 games.
The short. This could be 2. There's one. The first. And Team Mexico has eliminated Team USA in the World Baseball Classic.
If the U.S. had simply steamrolled to the title, people might have said, okay, great. This is going to be a U.S. event every 4 years. It was anything but that.
The countries that did advance to the single elimination semifinals included Japan, as well as the powerhouse Dominican Republic, boasting stars like Albert Pujols, David Ortiz, Miguel Tejada, and reigning Cy Young Award winner Bartolo Colon. In the semis, the DR would match up against the Cuban team, who by contrast had no big leaguers.
Nosotros vamos a jugar con Dominicano. Reconocemos que es un gran equipo, se va a ver un gran béisbol y bueno, el terreno dirá la última palabra.
Creo que eso un poco que lo sorprendió a ellos. De verdad que no estábamos intimidados y eso nos ayudó mucho. Y una frase que sí se nos quedó que siempre llevábamos bien presente, que el equipo de nosotros era un equipo de hombres y no de nombre.
The World Baseball Classic provided a unique experience that many of these Cuban players have never had. They'd never known what it's like to sit in a major league clubhouse. And I think just as a human being, that will impact you.
Y hubiéramos buscado un invento, un pretexto cualquiera para irnos para Cuba. No. ¿Esto termina cuándo? El 21. Entonces espera que estar el link.
The world has come to San Diego, and this tournament, I think, has exceeded everybody's expectations for excitement and drama.
The drama on that Saturday was heightened by a pitching duel and an array of sparkling defense. Then in the 7th, with the Dominicans leading 1-0, the Cubans finally broke through.
Check swing, that'll get the run home, and it's an extremely productive out. For Cepeda, he gets the RBI. It is 1-1. Sencillo, remolcador para Osmani Urrutia. And it is 3-1 Cuba.
Que una de las más grandes también que ha tenido el béisbol cubano.
WBC open a window. When you play with the best against the best, that brings something in you, that you want to beat the best, and the Cubans want to beat the best.
Sentenciado, Caro Tremonea, Cuba a la final del Clásico Mundial de Béisbol.
That 2006 World Baseball Classic, it kind of planted a seed for a lot of Cuban players. Like, we're playing against the Dominicans, we're playing against Puerto Ricans. You know, I think I can do this.
3-1, the underdog has defeated the team of great Major League stars and the amateurs from Cuba are in the final.
In the evening semifinal, Japan returned to the field to face a bitter regional rival.
Well, listen, we think Yankees-Red Sox, big rivalry. We think Giants-Dodgers, big rivalry. It's nothing compared to South Korea and Japan. I mean, you're talking about an ancient rivalry.
Korean Ball Club, they've gone 6-0. They've been the big surprise in the tournament.
Not only are they enormous rivals, but they also are both much more excited about the national team than the domestic league teams.
やはり韓国との戦いで2回続けて負けたっていうんでね、日本のファンの人たちはね、不満の部分があったと思うんですよね。
And I think the players knew that as well. Ichiro came out, and he doesn't say much in terms of being controversial, but he was right away. He challenged the South Koreans.
What he said was, we want to beat our competition in a way that makes them think that it'll take them 30 years to catch up.
Future major leaguer Koji Uehara started for Japan and overwhelmed the Koreans over 7 scoreless innings.
He struck him out. Strike 3 call. He strikes out the side.
Still, the Japanese couldn't score either, until finally in the 7th, Kosuke Fukudome broke it open. Two innings later, the score was 6-0, and Japan's vengeance was all but assured.
Japan has beaten Korea at long last.
いやもうここまで来たら技術だとかそういうことはもう関係ない試合だと思っていたし、実際みんなの気持ちが相手の上を勝って勝ったと僕は思ってます。
And it will be Team Japan that goes to the final against Cuba. The final of the World Baseball Classic, there were 16 countries represented when this all started in Tokyo 17 days ago, down to 2.
Japan against Cuba, the best baseball nation in Asia against the best baseball nation for many, many years in the Caribbean. What a matchup.
The WBC in '06, the Cuban players who were on that team, it was their first time to compete in the United States in a big league park. 3 decks, full house, crowds going nuts.
The excitement in Japan was very high. Fans were very willing to have the players devote themselves to winning this tournament rather than having them focus on their domestic team's pennant. If a player led the team to the WBC championship and then was not able to lead his team to the championship in Japan, that was okay.
Maybe no decision epitomized the importance of the World Baseball Classic to Japan more than the naming of a national treasure as the team's manager.
They took the biggest name, the biggest international name in the history of Japanese baseball, Sadaharu Oh. He's the world's home run king, and he's chosen as manager. The players felt such a responsibility to make the reality of Sadaharu Oh on the international stage as great as the image. He's the symbol of Japanese baseball, and it would be an outrage if he did anything other than succeed.
Look at the cheering down in Parque Central in Havana, and there's a lot of folks out there rooting on Team Cuba in Havana tonight.
In the Cuban clubhouse just before first pitch, everyone was well aware of how much the game mattered.
Todas las noticias que llegan de allá de Cuba, caballeros, son que ustedes son ahora mismo para ese pueblo su rey, sus reyes, lo que más brilla, sus estrellas. Lo único que les quiero decir es que tenemos la posibilidad entonces de brillar hoy. Mucho, 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 mucho. Mucho más para ese pueblo, que eso es lo que se merece.
These guys have won a lot of international tournaments. We always said they're going against amateurs from other nations. Well, guess what? They played against the best. They played against Major League Baseball now, and they have proven that they definitely belong on the same stage. They have major league talent, they're just not in the major leagues.
De tener un torneo como la calidad del Clásico Mundial, ni jugar con peloteros de grandes ligas. Y hubiera sido muy bonito esa experiencia, ya que tenían un equipo prácticamente imbatible, pero bueno, siempre le faltó esa motivación, ¿no? De jugar con peloteros de grandes ligas y probarse en general su calidad.
Bringing these two baseball cultures together, these two great baseball cultures, that was a huge moment and a huge matchup as well.
The tournament had begun with more than 150 major leaguers participating. Now, improbably, the rosters in the finals had just 2. Still, that didn't mean there wasn't any big league talent left. In fact, the name of Japan's Senpatsu Toshu, or starting pitcher, would soon be familiar to American fans.
Matsuzaka, one of the best in Japan.
This guy has major league stuff. In fact, don't be surprised if you see him pitching in the major leagues in a year or so.
The Daisuke phenomenon was great to see unfold on this global stage because, you know, you'd heard about him.
He has a good fastball, good curveball, good slider.
The 2006 WBC was a pivotal moment in the creation of the myth of Daisuke. The gyro ball, the pitch that no one could really see, understand, or comprehend. And there was this great mystery and this great mystique about Daisuke Matsuzaka.
He is 2-0 in this tournament. He's been excellent in both of his starts, allowing only 4 hits in 9 innings. Oh, the splitters struck him out. That was nasty. Strike 3. He powered a fastball right by Urrutia, a perennial batting champion. Matsuzaka strikes out the side.
He's got a nice, easy motion, but his ball explodes on you.
Behind a fast start and Daisuke's brilliance, Japan had a 4-1 lead through 4. And when Ichiro led off the 5th with a double, another Japanese rally was underway.
That is Ichiro style hitting right there.
His contribution, his leadership, his presence for that team is unmistakable.
Well, now he's in scoring position for Matsunaka. Matsunaka lines one into right field. That's going to be a base hit. Ichiro had to hold up to make sure it wasn't caught. He goes to third. Runners at first and third. Team Japan is set up nicely. That is caught at third. Now he just couldn't get it home. The throw to first, not in time. Team Japan now leads 5-1.
Japan would soon add another run in the 5th to make it 6-1. But when Matsuzaka exited the game right after, Cuba looked to seize an opening against the Japanese bullpen.
Se vio, ¿no? que apenas que cambiaron a Matsuzaka, el equipo salió agresivo.
To shortstop, Kawasaki with a high hop, bobbles it. And Gurriel's got too much speed for that to happen.
Lo hablamos en el banco, que si venía un relevo teníamos que atacarlo rápido para poder descontar las carreras porque estábamos todavía en el medio del partido.
There's a base hit for Borrero. He whacks one hard.
Y eso fue lo que hicimos.
That's a fair ball down the left field line, heading for the corner. Coming around to score is Gurriel. Base hit. Borrero will score. Urrutia has made it a 6-3 game.
Se puso 6-3, solamente 3 carreras de diferencia. Y el equipo seguía muy activo y la mentalidad siempre de que podíamos coger.
This one looked like it was going to be a blowout, but all of a sudden, Team Cuba found some life.
The Cubans had the momentum, and in the 8th, they struck again.
That ball is hit high and deep to left field. Way back there. Gone! A home run! And now it is a 1-run game. Spectacular home run for Frederic Cepeda. Cuba, this resilient Cuban team, is still breathing in this one. 6-5, can you believe this, Joe?
Well, I can believe it because they have proven that they can play with anyone.
Ahí sí todo el mundo dijo, lo cogemos. Creo que el noveno sí le podemos ganar porque muchas veces ha pasado, ¿no? Teníamos mucha experiencia de que el equipo viniera de abajo y podía tener resultados ganadores.
Now to the 9th inning. And certainly Japan could use some more runs.
Cuba had all the momentum in the final of the World Baseball Classic. But in the top of the ninth, Japan went back once more to fundamentals.
Oh, that's going to be a hit. Wow.
Llegaron a la novena y ese equipo de Japón de verdad que nunca se quitó.
And here comes Ichiro.
Ichiro surprised me a little bit because in the States here, he never really had the reputation as being a leader. Great player, no doubt about it, one of the greatest hitters of our generation. But I think in the WBC, you saw the leadership skills of Ichiro. He was the heart and soul of the team, and by the way, the best player on the team.
I go back to that game against Team USA, in which he gave the team a pep talk about knowing that you are as good as, if not better than, your competition. The confidence from that moment on was soaring. And there's Ichiro once again.
Ichiro has been on twice, scored twice. That's in the right field, a base hit. Coming home is Kawasaki. Safe! And Ichiro comes through in the clutch. It is 7-5. He's been on base 3 times. Has scored 2 runs, now driven in a huge run here in the 9th inning.
And Ichiro's RBI would open the floodgates, with Japan soon adding even more to their lead.
Team Japan, they're getting ready to celebrate. They now have a 10-5 lead over Cuba. They've scored 4 runs here in the 9th inning to break it back open.
Siguieron bateando, hicieron 4 carreras más y ahí sí ya era bien difícil, muy imposible que le pudieran remontar.
Japan 3 outs away from a World Baseball Classic championship.
Throughout the history of baseball in Japan, the goal has always been to see how does Japan compare against the best players in the world.
So 2 outs and 2 strikes.
And that's been the dream of Japan, you know, forever. Euphoria. It was euphoria in Japan, and they still talk about it today.
The inaugural World Baseball Classic has crowned its first champion, Team Japan.
There's a tradition in Japanese baseball, it's called doage. And traditionally, all of the players in unison throw the manager up in the air 3 times.
Congratulations to Sadaharu Oh and Team Japan. They are the World Baseball Classic champions.
There are a lot of memories of that moment, but for me, you have Sadaharu Oh and you have Ichiro together on the field enjoying this moment of victory. Maybe the 2 greatest stars in the history of Japanese baseball brought together by this one tournament, this one moment, and the pride of Japan.
If you're an American baseball fan who knew Ichiro and watched him play for the Mariners, you saw his level of emotion and what this meant to him, this victory for his country. And maybe this is how you start to understand just how important this tournament is on the global stage. Watching it through Ichiro's eyes and seeing what this triumph meant for Team Japan was really immense.
Daisuke Matsuzaka, the starting pitcher for Team Japan tonight, he has been named the World Baseball Classic Most Valuable Player.
Certainly Daisuke played a huge role against Cuba. Major League scouts knew about him. He was not exactly a secret, but at the same time, he did this on U.S. soil. He did it against Cuba. He only elevated his profile with that performance.
We just had this preview now of Daisuke Matsuzaka. It was just the next year he's pitching for the Red Sox in the World Series, and this WBC was the preview for him.
If you look back, 11 players went on to make a major league debut. Iwamura, Matsuzaka, Kawasaki, Uehara. The list goes on and on. So that shows you how many of Japan's stars at the time were budding bona fide U.S. professional baseball players.
Nobody was surprised when the 2006 World Baseball Classic was dominated by countries where baseball is king. But 3 years later, for the tournament's second installment, a number of the 16 teams all returning had improved significantly. The most improved team might have been the Netherlands, who played the heavily favored Dominican Republic in the first round, whose roster included all-stars such as Jose Reyes, Robinson Cano, and Hanley Ramirez.
When you play against teams like Dominican Republic, you know those guys are all-star players. So you got to show those guys that, you know what, we respect you guys, but we believe in ourselves.
So the Dutch were there to win, and right from the start, they looked to take advantage of every chance they got.
Ground ball up the middle, diving stop. Hanley Ramirez fires it wide to first, and the Netherlands have 3 runs in the first inning.
By the 9th, the Dominicans had cut it to 3-2 and had the tying run on second. But then, Willie Taveras looked to test the arm of a 21-year-old named Kenley Jansen. The Dodgers' all-star closer was a catcher then, and unloaded a fastball from behind the plate.
He is out at third base! Wow! Kenley Jansen, the youngster, guns down Taveras!
That changed the whole game right there. So I'm just staying relaxed down there, and that changed the whole game.
The Netherlands beats the Dominican! Maybe the biggest win in the history of baseball for the Netherlands!
Everybody was interested in what they were doing. And once they beat the Dominican Republic in the first game, I mean, it was like, wow, what's going on here? And we were interested, I think, to see if we were watching a moment.
3 days later, the double elimination bracket pitted the countries against each other again, with both teams needing a win to stay alive, and the Netherlands feeling confident.
We beat them already in the first time, so we know that the pressure is not on us, it's on them. So going to end that game, we just try to put pressure on them.
Swing and a miss. Down goes Ortiz.
They hit a couple of balls that they thought were out, and they didn't get out.
Hanley Ramirez hits it deep, and Engelhardt makes the catch.
You could see some frustration because they just couldn't get that hit they needed.
It went all the way to the top of the 11th, still scoreless. But then with Jose Reyes on first, the Dominicans finally broke through.
Bautista lines it to right, sliding, and it gets by Kingsale. Reyes around third. He's going to score. And the Dominican Republic scores first.
I don't know what to do. I was so emotional and excited because I know that now I put my country, in great position to win that ball game.
You look across into their dugout, and they're jumping up and down like they'd won the game. It was over. But our guys, they just didn't have any quit. It was almost like the sense of, hey, it's our turn. Let's go.
Come on, we got to score a run right here. Let's go. Let's go. We got to score a run right here. Come on.
We were facing one of the best closers in baseball.
Carlos Marmol.
114 strikeouts in 87 innings.
And Sidney DeYoung drives a double to left center.
DeYoung hits that ball in the gap, left center field. DeYoung on his way to second. He'll stop there with a leadoff double.
Then Kingsale gets the base hit to tie the game.
Drive to right center field.
Yeah! Sit down, sit down, sit down.
That's going to get in. Base hit. They've tied it.
Yeah!
The Netherlands has a run in the 11th.
We've been sitting on the runs all day. We stood up and run scored.
Don't sit out.
Gene Kingsale then advanced to third on a throwing error, which put the Netherlands 90 feet away from the biggest shocker in the WBC's short history.
Ground ball off the glove of Ibar. They did it. They win it. The Netherlands is going to Miami. Down goes the Dominican.
You got that expectation. You had a great team, and if you see the picture, I was with my feet open, my head down, and they take my heart away.
Absolutely unbelievable.
Let us battle all the way to the last out is what we do. We battle. We'll shock the world again.
Our guys did a great job of playing the game and not playing our opponent, and I think that was the biggest difference, is we never played the Dominicans. We played the game of baseball for that tournament.
The sun would end up setting on the Netherlands in the second round when they were eliminated by the United States. The Americans then advanced to the semifinals in dramatic fashion.
Swing and a little flare to right. Fair ball. David Wright with a walk-off knock. And Team USA moves on to the semis.
Now all of a sudden you think maybe this is the year for the U.S. to get to the final and win the WBC, but now here comes Japan.
And in their semifinal matchup, Japan once again relied on their relentlessness to take control with a 5-run rally in the fourth.
I knew they were going to be aggressive. I knew who they had. You know, I knew they had speed, and they're going to slap the ball and get on base.
Right center field base hit. Nakajima's got an RBI, and Japan's got a 6-2 lead.
The Americans looked to rally late, but Japan would respond. And then 23-year-old right-hander Yu Darvish secured his country's second straight trip to the WBC final.
That's in there, and Japan's going to defend their title tomorrow night with a 9-4 win over USA.
Meanwhile, South Korea would beat Venezuela in the other semi, setting the stage for a final featuring Asia's twin baseball powers.
Both of these teams are current international champions. Korea with the Olympic gold, Japan the last World Baseball Classic. Korea wanting to unify these titles. Japan saying, wait a minute, this one's ours.
Japan took an early 1-0 lead, but in the fifth, Shin-Soo Choo responded for Korea.
Shin-Soo Choo got one up there and delivers, and it's 1-1.
But it would be Japan who led 3-2 in the ninth.
Yu Darvish then comes out in the ninth inning. They think it's going to be another situation like in the semifinals where he closes it out in the ninth. Well, guess what? Korea has other ideas.
That's going to be a base hit into left field. Young Lee coming to the plate. This game is tied 3-3.
And so the battle would stretch to extra innings, where in the top of the 10th, Japan would put 2 on and 1 out for Ichiro, who had another chance to play the hero on the international stage.
Line drive, base hit, center field. Ichiro, a 2 RBI base hit, 5-3 Japan.
His 4th hit of the night, and the big man comes through in the big game.
The hit put Japan once again on the verge of a second straight WBC title and gave Yu Darvish another chance to close it out.
Swung out and missed, and Japan has successfully defended their World Baseball Classic title.
That was like the wake-up call for anybody who said, they won the first one when no one cared, no one was paying attention, and they snuck up on everybody. They didn't sneak up on everybody. This is a bunch of really good baseball players who form a cohesive team and are dynamite together, winning again.
2013 was the 3rd installment of the World Baseball Classic.
It's going to be loud, it's going to be noisy, it's going to be raucous.
And with the United States looking to finally live up to expectations, their team captain looked to play the hero.
Swinging a drive well struck to left. That one's got a chance, and that one in. International salami for David Wright.
Well, this is the Captain America time for him.
Captain America's cashed in again.
They were hanging Captain America hats in the Team USA dugout. He had really sort of embraced the role of sort of the guy for Team USA.
1, 2, 3. He cleared him with a double. He's done it again.
David was an unbelievable player for us. I mean, he took control and showed a great deal of leadership, and we pretty much jumped on his back.
But despite Wright's brilliance, the U.S. came up short again, eliminated from the tournament in the second round.
Puerto Rico eliminating Team USA.
There were other surprise early exits too, headlined by Cuba, who fell to a team once again playing the role of giant killer, the Netherlands.
That's gonna do it! The Netherlands will walk off all the way to San Francisco!
But the Dutch Cinderella run would come to a crashing halt in the semis against a Dominican team on a mission.
They had been embarrassed in the previous tournament by the Netherlands, and they were quite fired up about it, quite focused on winning.
I think the players in the Dominican would tell you the first couple of WBCs, they didn't take it seriously enough. Well, that wasn't the case in 2013. I mean, you could see from the get-go, they were not going to allow that to happen.
The Dominicans were unstoppable. Robinson Cano was playing out of his mind. He was just crushing baseballs all over the place.
Robinson Cano, don't you know? Oh, man, was that ball smoked?
The Dominicans dominated the field, becoming the first team in the tournament's history to go undefeated, with a perfect 8-0 record that earned them their first World Baseball Classic title.
Yeah! Swung on and missed. Yeah! Mission accomplished. The Dominican Republic, the World Baseball Classic champions.
This win is all about Dominican Republic. I mean, you know, they was hungry, waiting for this moment, and we did it. You know, we give everything that we have, so we win.
I was on the 1997 World Series team with the Marlins, and that was my biggest thing until we won the 2013 WBC. That was way more overwhelming than winning the 97 World Series.
The 2017 World Baseball Classic begins on March 6th, and this year, a new generation of American stars is eager to erase the disappointment of previous tournaments.
Maybe it's this year where Team USA really starts acting like Team USA. And by that, I mean really acting with the kind of passion and urgency that you have to show in this tournament. That buy-in has to come from the players, and I think it's starting to happen.
Now in 2017, we're starting to see more and more players that are of superstar caliber buying in. You've got Buster Posey, you've got Luke Roy, Nolan Arenado, who's one of the premier, I think, 5 players in the sport right now.
I'm excited for it. I've already told my teammate Alex Colomé that during spring training, we're not friends. It's somewhat playful, but deep down, we both want to prove to each other whose country's better at baseball.
Now I think the U.S. has put itself out there enough that they should win, and that the excuses now have disappeared. There are no more excuses about the record, 10-10 over the first 3 WBCs. This team is now built to win, and let's see how things go.
It was 11 years ago that the World Baseball Classic began, as much as an experiment as anything else. But now, it's no doubt an experiment that succeeded beyond expectations.
The primary objective in 2006 was that we have a second one. And that was not only, I think, accomplished, but exceeded that immediately after. We're like, we got to keep this going.
More countries get involved in the WBC, the bigger a success it is. You're not only introducing those teams to the tournament, you're introducing those fans from those countries, maybe to baseball for the first time.
Go Holland!
I don't know of anybody who doesn't get excited when country plays against country. There's a pride factor that you really can't explain. It's just something that takes precedent over anything else.